Hi, everybody on Facebook Live. We're here at City Gate with Main Point Women of Faith. And I don't have any announcements tonight, so I'm just going to introduce our speaker for tonight. Her name is Gina Martin, and she's going to come up, and I know are your friends coming with you at this point. She's going to introduce some of the ladies that she brought with her tonight, so we'll let her do that. I'm just going to say a prayer for them, and then we get started. Okay. All right. Well, Father God, thank you so much for Gina's willingness and her and the other ladies here to come and share part of their stories with us tonight. And I know a little bit about what's going to be shared, so we just thank you for their courage to come and speak tonight. And I just ask that you just speak through them the message that you want us to hear tonight, and take away any nervousness or anything like that from them. And we just ask you to bless each woman that's sharing tonight, bless their families, bless their ministries, bless their lives. And we just thank you for them. And we'll give you the honor and the glory of what's going to happen through their lives. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so like she said, I'm Gina Martin, and I'm very blessed to be with you here tonight. And I just look out across faces, and we are all women, right? We are all women with emotions. I think God made us special that way. So, yes, you might see some tears tonight, but we can also laugh, too. But I just hope that I just want to say this is a story that God wrote for me. It's really not my story. It's a story that God is writing for me. And that's how it is for each of us. It's how we respond to the direction he takes us. So I am very, very blessed to have my friends with me. So as the story is going to go, my story that God's writing for me is my husband was in a plane and he was killed in an accident in the plane, and with him was Esther's son Dwayne and Dolores' son Wes. So those were the three, and we have a picture here of them. This is a picture they took. When did they take this?
Dwayne sent it to us around 10:30 that morning.
Okay, so this was then in the plane, probably when they arrived out in Indiana.
Well, he said they have half an hour until they land.
Okay, so this was taken that day, the last photo we have of them. So I'm very, very blessed to have them. I said to them just recently, I said, can you come with me today? And they were like, yes, they'll come. And so I was very thankful. So I'm also very thankful. I'm going to introduce Brenda. This is Rod's sister Brenda, his one and only sister. So Rod came from a family of 6. He has one sister Brenda, and he had 4 brothers. And out of all your brothers, Rod was the most like you. We used to always think that. I think that a lot. So
yes.
I still have Brenda. I'm thankful.
And I still have Gina.
Yeah. So, and also I was going to tell y'all too, like 4 ladies showed up here that are very special tonight, and they are also widows, and they came to support me tonight. So I don't know where you're at in your life, but I'm very, very thankful for friends. So thankful for friends, right? We all need friends. God made us to help each other out. All right. So we were singing songs tonight, and one song that has been so important to me, I love songs, I love singing. So the one song that you might know, I'm just going to read it to you, but it's Amazing God, You're Still Amazing Me. And it says, I'll just read it. It says, you want to hear the story of how I made it through when life is full of pain and fear. The answer may sound simple, but everything else crumbles. The one thing has remained through all these years. And then the chorus, it goes, I'm going to sing the chorus for you. I just love this song. So you can join me if you know it. So it goes, I still serve an amazing God. He's been with me every mile my weary feet have trod. He still cares. hearts and drying tears. This old world is bound to change, but I'm glad I know the one who always stays the same. And my song will ever be, amazing God, you're still amazing me. That's the chorus. And then it says, the God that parted waters still makes a way today. He always brought me through the troubled scenes. The one who fed the thousands, whose word can calm the sea. He's my bread of life and he's my peace. So that song has just meant so much to me. I hope it means a lot to you too, right? God is amazing no matter what you're going through, right? Through the tears, through the heartache, he's still amazing. And if you hear me standing up here, if you would have heard what I all said to God this morning, I don't think you'd be too impressed with me. Because I was a little nervous about coming tonight. And I was like, Lord, I had an out loud conversation with him this morning. And I was feeling very smitten, and I was crying, and I said, I'm so sorry. And then I looked out my window. Did anybody see the sunrise this morning?
Amen.
Amen.
I couldn't help myself. I went out my back door. I went out to my backyard, and I said, God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this song came to my mind again. Amazing God. And I think sunrises and sunsets, this is my opinion, I think they are a glimpse of heaven. Because they're colors we can't even describe. This morning I couldn't explain the shades to you. It was amazing. And the thing that is really neat about them is they last for a couple seconds. I ran back in the house to get my phone to take pictures until I came back out. I took some anyway, but it wasn't the same. So yeah, God is amazing. He is amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give a real brief background about Rod, and then I'm going to let them share about, just that way you know who these men are, okay? So Rod and I, like I said, we both had 5 siblings. Rod came from a family of 5 boys and one girl, Brenda, and I came from a family, there was 3 girls and 3 boys. And we met in our church youth group. We got married in September of '94. We have 6 children, and our family's the same as what he was raised with, 5 girls and 1 daughter. We currently have 3 married and 3 at home, and we have 5 grandchildren. I tend to say we and I still like to say we, because they're just as much Rod's now. I still think they are. So Rod worked in construction when we got married, and then he worked for Martin's in water sales. That was what he did for a job. And he enjoyed sales training. He loved people, very much of a people person. So he would go out and do sales. He would take sales training at different places, and then he would come back and say he's going to make it Christian. And then he would come back and teach it to Martin employees and different places. He enjoyed, he worked on the side. He taught young family finances with what was called Anabaptist Financial, and he also taught sales training with them as well. So he just really liked his job. And with that part of his job, he went to Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, a couple of different places, and I would get to go along sometimes. And these young couples would come in, and oftentimes they'd have a baby with them or something. So I always said it was a win-win. I would bounce babies in the back, and he would be up there teaching these young couples. So it was fun. So we also taught engaged couples classes together about 4 or 5 times a year, and that was good for our marriage. That was really good for us. When Rob would talk about personalities, he would say, I am a black and white person. And then he would say, and I've been in sensitivity training for the last, and then he would say how many years we were married. And I would be like, Rod, you don't have to say that. But he said that to explain how our personalities meshed well. I needed him very much. I tend to waffle around sometimes. I needed a very strong black and white person in my life. And he was, and I'm very thankful for that. And I still think in my head sometimes when I'm trying to make decisions, I think, wonder what he would say. And then I do what I think he would say. So yeah, he was a very good husband, a very good father. And I would say the last 3 years of our marriage were the best. And the reason I say that is because with his strong personality, sometimes I tended to pull back sometimes. And God really convicted my heart, and he said, Gina, you're going to have to trust me. You pray for him, and I will direct him, and then you trust me. And so, yeah, if you're listening or if you're here and you're married, pray to God to direct your husband, and then trust him. It's really easy for me to say that now. Yeah. So Rod also was the administrator of our youth chorus. For 7 years, we were involved with our youth chorus. He was a fun person. He was blessed with an incredible mind. He would teach us lots. He was constantly teaching us about the stars and the clouds, and he was taught and taught and taught. And I really missed that when he was no longer here, because he was constantly teaching us stuff. And like my children, they would always love when he went along on field trips. And their friends would always want to be in their groups because he would always be a little tour guide to them. So, he was not perfect, but he taught me so much. He was just a really, really good husband and father. So when he was 35, he got his license, his pilot's license. He flew people on the side, like to their jobs and things. He would also just fly friends. Some people he also flew, he flew a friend to a hospital for back surgery because that man couldn't sit in an airplane to fly. So he made a bed for him in the back of his little airplane. We piled blankets and sleeping bags and all kinds of stuff, and he flew him to his surgery, and then the man could come back on commercial. And also with his job, he talked to a lady one time, this little old lady, and she had 5 cats, and she was moving to Florida, and she didn't want to put her cats underneath the airplane, in crates. So she said, could you fly me to Florida with my cats? And he said, sure, I'll do that. So yeah, he really enjoyed flying. So yeah, I'll let Esther tell a little bit about Dwayne.
Okay, our son Dwayne was 32 when in the plane crash, so he was still a young man. He was single. He had, maybe I should start, he was born in 1990. He was our little groundhog. He was born on Groundhog Day. And his cousin Shayla is here tonight, so we're honored to have her. Yeah, Dwayne grew up a quiet fella, and yet he was always very, very interested in what makes people tick. When he was a teenager or a preteen, I did a lot of childcare in our home, and he always had to know, did you have a bad day? Did you have a good day? Who did this? Who did that? Why did they do this? Or why did they say that? And sometimes, I felt like he came down to me a little hard, like, why did you have a bad day? Or what gave you a bad day? And then I'd say, Dwayne, someday you're going to be a pastor or a counselor. Because he just wanted to reach the heart of, especially the children in my care. And so I saw that as kind of a trait. And so when he was 30, or a little before 30, he took up a resident counselor out at Indiana at a men's addiction recovery program with his friend Wes. And he was out there for 3 years, and then came home for 3 years, and we had some wonderful 3 years. That amazed me. Gina said her last 3 years were amazing. And our last 3 years were just great. He worked with his dad every day at Set 6 Feed Mill, and the workers there just really appreciated Dwayne. He was very quiet, but he was in the youth group, he was a quiet guy with a loud Jeep. But yeah, we were blessed by many things in his life. Oh, and as a child, I should say, when he was about 15 months old, he had something viral that put his body into kidney failure. And when he was taken up to Hershey, the doctor said, this boy shouldn't be here. He said somebody was watching over him. And the doctor was a Jewish fellow who really did not believe in the presence of God in a way, if I should say. But he kept saying, somebody was watching over this boy. And then when Dwayne was about 23, he developed high blood pressure due to his kidney failure stuff. And the doctor said, this was a doctor at Ephrata, he said, somebody was watching over you. And Dwayne said, yes, he was. Dwayne kind of grew up knowing that he was protected from an early, from passing away of kidney failure. He grew up knowing that, and he knew that He knew that there were many prayers on his behalf through that experience. And we just really felt that. Then I'm thinking, God, why was he saved to die so young? But you know what? Those 30 years, we had some really good 30 years. And, yeah, is there anything else I should? And when Dwayne had friends, he had deep friendships, and which is quite commendable for a fellow. And he often had his friends at our house, which we really loved. He was, like I said, he was a very quiet person, but he loved to have his friends at our house, and I loved him. And he was friends with Wes.
Very much. I'm not sure how many years, but it was a long time since we went to church together at the same place, same church, till Calvary came along, and then Dwayne stayed at Blue Ball, and Wesley was in Calvary. But Wesley, he was also a quiet boy, but they were just best of friends. And yeah, he was 30 when the accident happened, just had turned 30. I felt very blessed we were able to have a birthday party for him, a surprise birthday party. And well, I rarely plan surprise birthday parties, but we did that time, and his birthday was August the 6th, and this happened August the 11th. But the family was sitting around the campfire, and we had a supper, and I told Dwayne to let a number of Wesley's friends know that they're supposed to meet somewhere, and then a drive over to our farm, and they'll park along the fence. And Dwayne said, yes, he'll do that. He'll invite. I says, just think of the ones. They were at Fresh Start also together as counselors. I didn't say that, but that was years before that. Dwayne had gone first, and then Wesley went like a couple months later after Dwayne went. And so I told Dwayne to invite some people from Fresh Start too that are in the area. Yeah, Dwayne says he will invite them. So this was just a special occasion that Dwayne did this, and they walked quietly across our back porch. Everybody in a row. There was, I don't know, probably about 25 people of the youth came, and they walked quietly across the back porch, and we were just kind of up on the hill a little bit, and Wesley kind of had the back towards the barn, so he didn't see them coming. And I think out of the corner of his eye, he saw all of them walking across the back porch, and he didn't know what to say. He was a man of little words. So he just said, oh. And it was just fun to see him. And yeah, it was just a good time.
Okay, thank you.
Could I say, like, for Dwayne, he had told us when he had signed up for 18 months or 2 years out at Fresh Start to be a counselor, and he told us he's planning to be out there indefinitely. That was a little hard for my husband, because he was our only son at home anymore. We have actually had 2 sons, so to let you know that. And then just a couple months later, Dwayne said, God's calling me home. And that was another shock. You know, why was he was planning to stay out there at Fresh Start indefinitely, but he said, I don't know, but God's calling me home. And I think that was to build relationships and just have some really good solid memories at home. Yeah.
Wesley came home, and he was into construction work, and he had his own business, kind of, just like any single guy would have. And Wesley, our son Daniel took over the farm since my husband and I wanted to step back a little bit. And so Daniel took over for well, actually I should say we had 3 sons and one daughter. Our one daughter is in Missouri, and the 3 boys were here in the area. And then Daniel was we had chickens. We had 3 houses, and Daniel was raising the chickens with his family, and we kind of split the house in half, and we lived in the one half. And then Wesley decided he'd like to have a chance at it, so he raised the chickens for exactly a year, and then it was the accident, and so then we kind of did have a break for a couple months, and then my husband and I took over again, raising chickens, and we raised them about a year to our son Daniel decided to come back and live in the house, and then we would just move just up the road a little bit in a ranch style house. And Wesley was very, very happy to do this, and he made out fine raising the chickens himself, and I would sometimes just make a platter for him and stick it over in his refrigerator and for his supper, and he was busy, yes, but he enjoyed it. He enjoyed that. And yeah, he took care of a lot of the farm work, but our neighbors did take care of the fields, and that was a help. But yeah, Wesley, he really had a heart for people after he realized what counseling and mentoring can do for a person. He just was blessed again and again.
So thank you. That's a little bit about our sons and husbands. So that gives you a little background, all right? So I'm going to just move on in our stories here, just to show you a few God moments. And I know we all have God moments, right? It's like we just stand back and say, really, God? Like, that is amazing, right? Amazing God. So just some things that came into my life, and I would love to talk to you some after. If you think of God moments in your life, I would love to hear about them afterward too. So Sunday, August 7, our children all came home that Sunday night. They came home. My young people that like to go be with our friends, they stayed home. We just had a good Sunday evening. Nothing unusual, just a normal, good family time. And then just a few things I picked out. Tuesday I was out working in my flower beds, and this thought went just through my mind. I mean, just that fast. I didn't think about it again. And the thought was, if anything happens to Rod, I will ask his friend Davey Showalter to have devotions and our minister Mike Zimmerman to have the service. And it was that fast, I didn't think about it anymore. But I'm telling you, after that accident, I was like, that is one decision that is made. That is one decision. I was so thankful for that one decision that was made. And they consented to do it. His friend Davey wasn't sure at first if he could, but he agreed to it. He did a good job. And Wednesday evening, we were at a viewing. So Rod actually got to see all of his siblings within the last week of his life. And we were at this viewing, and in front of a couple people in front of us, there was a widow and a widower, and they were dating, this couple, and I just said to Rod, I'm so damn on their shoes. And you know what, 24 hours later, I was 24 hours later. So Dwayne had asked Rod if he could take them to Fresh Start, and they wanted to go out to meet with a young man that was going to move home. That's why they went out to Indiana. They were going to meet with a young man that was going to move home, and then Wes and Dwayne were going to be working with him here at home. He had finished the program, is that right? Yeah, so they just wanted to keep on doing follow-up with him.
And they decided to take a plane because these were busy guys. They had things to do, places to go, people to help, and they were constantly, they had those plans all in place for the next couple days after they came home.
So the following week, they were planning to go up to Alaska to help in a boys' camp.
A best man and a wedding, and
which we know it didn't happen.
So that morning, then Thursday morning, I remember Rod got up and he was so happy because, I mean, he just loved to fly and he was always happy. And he was always happy. And I remember he said, well, he would always check weather and be like checking this stuff. And he was extremely cautious. Sometimes he would wait to the last minute and call people and say, I'm so sorry, this weather is not working. And I'd be like, can't you just go? He's like, no, I can't go. It's just, you don't go. It's too stormy. And that morning he said to me, he said, the only concern I have today is it's a little cloudy at Deck Airport. That's where they flew out of. He said, it's a little cloudy. We might have to, our takeoff time might be delayed. He said, other than that, the weather looks great. And he was one very happy camper. And it was a beautiful day at home. It was just a gorgeous day at home. So, yeah, my day went great. It was a busy day. He often would call me when he got to where he was. And the last time he had flown, I was busy that day, and I talked to him real briefly on the phone, and he knew I was having a busy day, so he did not call me that day. And I'm just like, but it's okay. So he told me he's going to be home around 8 o'clock, and I couldn't remember if he said 8 o'clock at our house or 8 o'clock at the airport. The airport is 45 minutes from our house. So around 8 o'clock, I just pulled up my phone and I looked at my Life 360 because I could always see where he was. And when he would fly, sometimes he would it would stop some places because he'd be out of service. And then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, he's like hundreds of miles away. It was just, so I was like 8 o'clock, I was like, oh, I looked at it, and then my phone said 6:03 over West Virginia. It stopped at 6:03, that's when his time stopped. And I thought, well, he's probably running late, maybe he had to stop for fuel, that would be a little unusual. I thought, I'll check it 10 minutes from now, he's gonna be at the airport, he's probably just out of service, whatever. And I just thought, well, I'm sure he's fine. And I remember one of my sons checked my phone, and they said, Mom, it's all wooded here. It's all woods where this is. And I said, well, he'll probably pop out. It'll probably pop out over weather. And then I was starting to get a little uneasy. It's like after 8 o'clock, and I'm like, But, so at 9:30, I told my boys they have to go to bed. I had 4 boys at home at that time, and I told them they have to go to bed. And my oldest son that was at home, I let him stay up, and I knew they weren't sleeping. We were all getting a little bit like, where's Dad? Like, where is he? Where is he? And over the years, Rob would often say to me, he would say, I have such a good life. You worry enough for both of us. I don't have to worry about anything. And so I was like, I'm not going to worry. So that's sort of what pushed me off from doing anything, because I didn't want to, I just thought he was okay. So I looked back at my phone, and at 9:52 I text Esther, and I just said, just curious, did Dwayne tell you what time he was planning to get home? And she replied, no, he didn't, not sure what time. Does Rob fly at night? Was thinking about that too. And I replied, yes, he does. I thought they'd be back by now. Maybe they're running late. Esther said, I was wondering too, but I didn't ask Dwayne. I just know he said sometime tonight. So I knew Rod had a really, really good friend, Dwayne Martin, that also was a pilot. I knew he had went to Indiana that day. And I was like, by now it's like almost 10 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, I can't spend the night not knowing where he is. Like, something's got to happen. So I called his wife, and she did not answer her. Well, I tried calling Dwayne first, and he didn't answer, and then I started to panic, so I called his wife. Thankfully, she answered, and he was already sleeping. And she said, she got him on the phone, and then I said, I'm concerned because Rod's not home yet. And Dwayne has this really calm, chill personality. Mm-hmm. But when I told him that, he went in to major calm. Like, he was just like, okay, so what's the tail number of his plane? And my son had it memorized, so he told him, and then he said, I'll check into it, we'll get back to you. So he called another friend, and then he said, what should I do? And this friend's like, they called Morgantown Tower where they thought he would be. Well, I guess he checked his phone as well. He checked flight following, first of all, and he also saw his flight stopped in West Virginia. And he said he knew it's not like Life 360, it is accurate. Mm-hmm. Flight following is accurate. So he was like, so he called to they didn't know anything at Morgantown, so he called Cleveland Center, and he told them he's calling on behalf of the pilot's wife. and they said the plane went down, there was no survivors. And I was worried, but I was still in denial. I was like, he's gonna be okay. He always was okay. He was one of those people that always figured everything out. So Dwayne told Tiff she has to call me because he cannot. And so she called back. It was within 15 minutes. And then she just said, are your boys at home? I still remember this phone conversation way too well. She said, are your boys home? And I could tell she was all struggling to talk. And I was like, yep, they're home. And then she said the plane went down and there were no survivors. And I said, how do you know that? All these planes out there. How do you know it was his plane? And she said, I'll let you talk to Dwayne. And Dwayne said, it was the tail number. It was his tail number. And then he said, and it's already on the news. And I was like, he said it's already on the news, and I was just like, ugh. So I just said, he said he heard my son in the background just say, he heard my son say, now what are we going to do? And I just said, God's going to take care of us, and we'll call Blake. That is my oldest son. He lives right down the road. And when I was still on the phone, with them, with Tiff and Dwayne, my phone, I saw another call was coming in, and here it was my minister's wife. And so I answered the phone, and she said, we'll be right over. But there, God's timing, isn't that amazing? If she would have called me 2 minutes earlier and said, we'll be right over. So her son-in-law is a pilot. There's a pilot out at Fresh Start following them home, watching them. So people are knowing about this before I found out at 10 o'clock. It happened at 6:03. I didn't find out till 10. So, and I said to her, I just said, oh, just please tell Nelson and Esther. And at this time, I didn't know Dolores and Carl as well as I do now. But I just said, just please, please, please tell Nelson and Esther. So, yeah, it was just really, really hard. It's sort of a blur in my mind how it all went. Grant was up, my oldest son was up at home, and I went and told my three youngest, the youngest was 12 at the time, and I went and told them. They were laying in bed, and I remember I told them, and our house is sort of designed that there's a kitchen and a family room in the back and a living room in the front. And when they were little, they used to run circles and play in those circles, right? They would run and chase each other in circles, and it was always fun. I'm telling you, that's exactly what they did. They ran in circles, and they just cried, and they kept saying, no, 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 and ran in circles and circles and circles. And I was running right behind them saying, God's going to take care of us. God's going to take care of us. God's going to take care of us. And I just kept telling them over and over. And yet, through all of that, there was still, in the chaos and the yelling, it was just not fun. And there was still a peace there. There was a peace. And it did not go long at all that Stephen, our other pastor, walked in the door. And when we were running around in circles, and then people just started walking in the door. And this is after 10 o'clock at night. And people just started pouring into the house. I don't remember. I had another neighbor lady that lived really close by. Her husband was a pilot, and she said she'd been driving past our house for the last 2 hours. And she knew about the accident, but she could not come in to tell us because she could tell that we did not know. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you for not coming, because that gave us 2 more hours of thinking that Rod was still here. It gave us 2 more hours of normal. So I remember sitting on the sofa with my hands around my children, crying and crying, and my sister praying, just praying and praying. I remember Brenda coming. I remember hearing her crying outside. I just remember that. And you don't even remember a lot of coming or that evening very well.
It was a shock.
It was just a shock. It was that shock.
Blank out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of a blur in my mind. It still is, because it was just that whole shock of just having to be told. And I think people did clear out. I did actually lay down on my bed, and I slept from 3 to 5. I did sleep for 2 hours. I knew that night. So, yeah. So
after we found out.
Well, I told Jewel and Marty, I said, call Nelson and Esther, and they just went right to their house. Yeah.
When the phone rang, we were upstairs in bed, but with my phone up there, and it was Marty, and I knew. I said, "It's not good, is it?" She said, "No." And so we came down, and she told us, and then we had to go tell our son, our other son, and I think that was the hardest thing I ever did. But, you know, through it all, I could say we felt a certain peace because we knew we were loved, we were supported, and we felt grief for Gina and Dolores and Carl. But God is good. God is good.
We would have found out only, well, we found out at 12:30 at midnight. And then by Wesley's bishop coming, and his wife came to see us, came to our farm and parked out front. And he just called. For some reason, my husband had the phone by his side. I'm not sure why he had his cell phone by his side. Normally he don't. And the phone rang, and I said, "That's your cell phone." And he answered, and Carl says, the bishops just said to Carl, "Are you awake? I'm out here in the driveway." And Carl says, he sounded to me like he was laying awake, and he just said, "Yep, I'll be right there." And my husband was thinking that we actually did know that Wesley wasn't home yet. We knew when we went to bed at 10 o'clock that he wasn't home. And anyways, my husband was just thinking that this was a trucker probably. My husband's a trucker, and so he just figured it's a trucker. Someone came off the turnpike and needed some tools. So he goes, "He'll be right there." And so my husband looked out, and we had to look through Wesley's one doorway so we can see who's out there, because he didn't want to just run outside, and because it was midnight. So he goes, he saw that it was a van. So it's like, well, you don't know who that would be. So he went outside and started looking around a little bit, and then he saw a lady standing with this other guy. He didn't know it was the bishop yet at that point, but then he saw the lady standing there, and he just said, "Can I help you?" And then they just said, the plane went down. And just like that, then Carl said, yeah, he was just surprised to hear and was sad, I'm sure. And I didn't go out at the time because I didn't know who it was. I just kind of stayed back, and I wasn't quite able to see exactly who it was. But it did dawn on me then, as the few minutes that went by, that it must be somebody talking about the plane. And just like that, Carl came to the back door, and he just said, "Come out," he said. The plane went down. So I got dressed at that point, went out, and he just, then they just said what happened, and yeah, we invited them in then, and they sat around the table with us, and we called our son Randall, and he turned his phone off because he was, I guess, had a busy day, and he turned his phone totally off, so he didn't get any messages till about 4:30 that morning what happened, and he got a lot of texting from other people. And for Daniel, we called, oh, that's right, I didn't say, but I was babysitting Daniel's 2 girls that kept me kind of conscious sometimes while sleeping, because these girls, I'm not used to having girls in the next room, which was fun and okay. And so Daniel's, they lived down in Reading, and they were there in a short time because they could just pick up their one baby and come. And so they were there in a short time, and then soon the bishop and his wife did go home. But yeah, we just kind of sat around for a little bit. Yeah, my mind is kind of foggy how it happened after that.
The next 2 weeks were kind of a blur.
Yeah, my husband, the bodies were taken elsewhere, and I guess,
And at that point, we thought all 3 bodies were found within the plane, not knowing till a couple days later that Rod's body wasn't in the plane.
So what happened is they were flying over West Virginia and a storm came up really fast. I'm not sure of all the details, but that's what they think. They got caught, and it was wind shear that took the airplane wing off. And when the sheriff went out to the plane, he said he saw 3 bodies in the plane. And I am so thankful to this day that they thought they were on the plane. So then on Saturday morning, some people from our area went down there, and when they got down there, Dwayne went down. I'm not sure. Dwayne Martin. And
several Rod's
I'm not sure
family.
if it was the next morning. Was it Saturday morning? Some people went down to the site, and then when they got there was just dogs everywhere, and they were like, "Why are these dogs? Why are all these, dogs looking for?" And they didn't know it till then. And then Dwayne talked to the one sheriff, and he just said, "Our stories aren't lining up." He said, "There's only 2 people," and they
in the plane.
So Dwayne asked if my boys could see it. I don't know if all the details how it all happened, but Dwayne had got there first. He asked if my boys and the men from church could see the plane, and they did, and they were there. They left them watch, very sort of, they weren't sure if they wanted to, but they left them come look at the plane.
With the bodies in yet?
No, those bodies were taken out, I believe.
Taken out.
Yeah, but they, at that point, did not know yet, I don't think, that they had not found Rod.
Yeah.
But they were down there, and then they got to see the plane. They weren't there very long, and they just said everybody has to clear out, just like that. And they just cleared the area, and here, that is where they found Rod. So he had landed on top of the mountain, and the plane had landed down a little bit, and Wes and Dwayne were in the plane. So I'm just so thankful. I didn't know that they were looking for him. I would have had this one little smidgen bit of hope that maybe, or at that, I'm not sure if they would even known who it would have been, but yeah. So we are so much to be thankful for. It was another thing. So as time went along, then the bodies were taken. It was just a little bit of a time frame in there. When I went to the funeral home here, the funeral director had met Rod. He had met him a year before. Rod put a water system in his house, so he knew him. And I was like, oh, that is so nice. It was just really, really nice. Rod used to always say to me, when I die, just bury me in the cheapest casket they have, cheapest one they have. So I went in there. I said, well, that was just another huge thing because it's a decision made. We're picking out the cheapest one you have. And the funeral director just smiled at me and he said, well, if they come in green or white. So that's the cheapest one you can have. And they're like, it's okay to upgrade a little bit. So we did. We did an upgrade. So, yeah. And God was so good through it all, through all the pain, through all the hurt. And God, we've all been through bumps in life. But we have to sometimes just stop and really look for God and just take the time to see Him. One thing that really, that I had to think, sometimes when you're grieving, you do funny things. I remember the first sympathy card I got was from a friend of ours from California. That was the first sympathy card that came. And I think he might have been in the area and sent it from closer because he would fly a lot for his business. But I called him and thanked him for it. But I remember just thinking, if I could I would walk and give that card back to him. And maybe if I could just return it, I could have Rod back. Mm-hmm. And some of your brain does funny things to you. You just think maybe. Lyle was in 10th grade at the time. His school, a bunch of his friends came over one night, and I ran out to give his two 15-year-old boys this big hug for bringing cards for Lyle. And all of a sudden I'm like, I think I'm really weird. And I told him, I said, this stoic German has turned into a hugging Italian. And they were like, oh, Gina, it's okay. And they both gave me a big hug. And I was like, thank you. So, yeah, Wes and Wayne's body were released before Rod's was. And at the funeral, at Dwayne's funeral, I was like, I sat down and talked to a bunch of them. They brought a busload in from Fresh Start, right? And I was just like, I just have to know what was the last meal that Rod ate. What was his last meal? And so they told me. I have no idea what it was. I
never
forget.
gave that a thought.
Yeah, that was something that was so important.
I wanted to know what was their last thoughts before they went down.
Oh, yes.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. They told us about the day out there. I mean, I was just talking to them. One of the guys said they have a rule out there that if you walk away from the table and your chair's out, that you have to help with dishes. And some guys beside Rod hopped up and left his chair out, and Rod just left. They say, quick, pushed it in. He said, I got you, buddy. So you don't have to help with dishes. So yeah, they had a good day out there at Fresh Start. So when the funerals, Dwayne's funeral was,
First, it
Right.
probably was on a, was it a, you know what? I'm not even sure
That's
the
okay.
date. Maybe
That's
a
okay.
Thursday, Friday?
I was
Were they
gonna look
Friday,
back
Saturday,
again.
Sunday, maybe?
they were like that.
Maybe
And then
that's what it was.
Weaverland Church offered to have Rod's funeral service there, and Brenda's daughter Ivy got married Saturday, and then Rod's viewing was Sunday.
And so you have to realize these three fellas were, okay, Gina and I were from the same church, and Wes was from a sister church, so our ministry was all involved in all the funeral plannings and meal plannings and everything for the three families.
Yeah. So some of the things that just stuck out to me about, I'm just going to share a little bit some of the God moments I had at Rod's funeral. The person that probably stuck out to me the most was a little friend of his from church that was Down syndrome, little Stevie, from Calvary Church, and he came up and he took my head in his hands and he kept saying, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And I stood there and I was crying, and he was saying, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." So different things like that. We had friends come from Kentucky to the viewing. We just had so much support. We were so blessed. The whole day of the funeral, the viewing, I remember coming after the funeral thinking, am I supposed to smile? What do you do? What do you do? But God was good. Our friend Davey did his devotions, and he talked about pottery, and he had a coffee cup that he talked about. He had just pulled it out of their cupboard, and he talked about pottery, how we're like in the potter's hands. And then he came and gave it to me, and our children said, "Mom, look at that cup." It was navy on the top and tan on the bottom, and that was Rod's work outfit colors. They were navy and tan. So just so many blessings through it all. For us, well, actually, you share anything special. One of the hardest things when I went to Dwayne's viewing, when I gave Nelson a hug and he cried in my ear. That was I never heard a man cry like that, and that was just so hard. That was so hard. But yeah, it was a hard time. But through it all, we were blessed. We were so blessed. I didn't have a struggle with not viewing. They said we couldn't view, and I did not have a struggle with it. At first, they weren't sure if we could have Rod's body even. They weren't sure they were going to release it, and I said no. I need to have his body. We'll just wait until we do. But yeah.
And I was actually glad we couldn't view, because I'm the kind of person I'd rather not. And, you know, I'd rather not see the ugliness of it. I want to just remember his good pictures.
I would say the same thing. My husband did not feel the same way I did. And he talked to the undertaker, and the undertaker said, well, he can unwrap a hand. And I said, well, if you want to see it, that's fine. I don't have to. So some of the family stood in the other room, and as he was sitting up the coffin, and Carl was right there. He wanted to at least see the one hand. I thought it doesn't make any difference to me.
Because he was kind of concerned that maybe Dwayne's and Wes's bodies were in the wrong casket at times. He was not sure of that sometimes. Yeah. So it was
So
yeah.
he called me in when he was looking at it, and he says he's showing the one hand, and I said if you want me to come in, and so I did. And that didn't make any difference to me. I didn't, of course, the hand was kind of black, kind of blackish over the hand, and it didn't look like, and it was wrinkled. It didn't look like his hand at all.
And then talking about that reminds me, when we went back to the crash site, I went maybe several months later, a group of us went, and I said to the one guy, because they wanted all the identification, they wanted, like Dwayne had a broken leg at one point, you know, he had plates in there, they were asking for dental records, and I said, well, Dwayne must have had his wallet in his pants, because, you know, I said, couldn't you get their identity from their license pictures? And the fella said, no, not always. And then I said, no, I don't need to know anything else. I said, I don't know when I know anything else. But, yeah, that was kind of hard. But
We did get the cell phones. Did you?
no, we got Dwayne's wallet with everything in, but we did not get his cell
No,
phone.
we did get something.
And
Yeah,
we
we got
finally-
Leslie's wallet.
Yeah, but we couldn't get any of his pictures or things like that. But you know what? Those are temporal. Those are temporal.
Yes, we did get Leslie's cell phone because we got all
Yeah,
those
you got
pictures.
the pictures.
That's right, we
yeah.
got about,
But
we
you know,
were able to
in the
get
midst
scrolls
of
and
all
pictures.
this, of all the paraphernalia that was flying out of the plane, somebody found some Fresh Start literature, and they said they had peace that these were godly men, and knew that they were probably involved in godly work. And so, you know, God uses those things, those very, very small things.
So the debris had flown for about a mile, I think it was. So we got to know a lot of different people down there, which is very, very special. The people that, there's one place that we would go to that we stopped in and we went, I was down about 3 times, I think. But the one time we got to his house and he came carrying a 5-gallon bucket. Every time he's out and finds a piece of glass or anything like that, he puts it in the 5-gallon bucket, and then he gave us that bucket. So, and when we were down there with the youth group, we later took the youth group down there and we sang for all the firefighters and the first responders, because they had hundreds of people out there doing searching.
In one of the back churches,
Yeah.
they invited us in.
Yes.
That was just so anointed. That was
The parking lot was full of fire trucks and ambulances and all kinds of stuff, because they were on call, you know, so that's what they came in, and they all came in their uniforms, and with Rod having been in the chorus, part of the chorus, and I think your boys both sang it at one time, so the young people went down there, and I never heard them sing like that in my life. They just sang from their hearts, and a lot of these people, Rod's brother thanked them for letting Jesus use their hands and feet to help us. And a lot of these people don't even know the Lord, but they got to hear about God that night. And God did use them. God did use them to help us when we needed it so much.
And, you know, Shelley and some of them had said that, you know, many times they don't, if you're out on the scene and casualties, you don't know the result. You know, the casualty, that's what you saw, that's the end of it. But, you know, with us coming back and a lot of communication now, there has been some closure, there's been some healing within their departments.
So, and we still, this weekend, actually, the fire chief's wife's coming up this weekend. She comes up quite a bit and just likes to come up. So, yeah, so through it all, God has been good. And you all know what hurts are. We all know what hurts are. But just that God shows himself faithful, even in the hard times, even when we don't understand. Just some things, little things, and you can share some things too if anything comes to your mind. When after my son, that was the oldest one at home, Rod's accident was August 11th, and then Grant got married September 17th. When we were taking pictures, before his wedding, we're all taking pictures, and this little airplane comes flying overhead, just right over our heads, like low, and we're all waving. And it was just like,
Did you get that on pictures?
yeah, the photographer did. The photographer got us, you know, waving up. And, you know, I often wondered, like, what made that pilot do that? God did, right? And I hope God uses me in things like that too, to just, you know, so that was, and then on October 8th, our first grandson was born. He was born at Reading Birth Center. He was born and he made a little noise, and that was it. His heart stopped. He stopped breathing. They called 911. They got him going again. The midwife did CPR on him, and they got him going again. They chilled him for 3 days, and then he was in the hospital for a week, and he is okay.
Yes.
He is okay. And
And you know,
yes.
through everything, I never was really angry at God. But that morning, I remember thinking, God, what are you doing? You know, I was demonstrating just a little bit of anger then. I believe.
the morning of justice when you found
Yeah,
out.
when I found out about justice.
Well, that night, so I got the phone call around 10:30 that evening, and my brother and my sister and her family was still at our house. They had been there for the evening. We just all I think, dropped to the floor and started praying.
Yes.
And the youth group was together, and my sister texted her daughter, who was the youth leader, and she stopped the volleyball game. They just all got in groups and were praying and praying and praying. And yeah, we don't understand the power of prayer, but it is really, really huge, the power of prayer. Yeah, another time we went up to Deck Airport to be with our friends, Dwayne Martin and another pilot friend of Rod's. We were sitting there, and another airplane that was, they thought, a year different than Rod's, did 3 touch and goes. It did, it came and landed and took off, and came and landed and took off. It just was so peaceful. That was huge to me, it felt like God cares. He still cares. So, yeah, we went down to the site. The first time I went up to the site, it was very slippery, very hard getting up. And one of the firefighters down there, he helped me up the whole way to the top. But I was very, very thankful for that.
And you know, these guys had, the night of the accident, they had to work hours to clear the path to even get to the site. You know, with bulldozers, big terrain equipment, just to clear us to get to the crash. And, you know, we just can't fully fathom the work they went through.
A couple months later, we took the youth group down. They put a rope along the trees so we could grab the rope to pull up. It's pretty steep. So they had that all lined up for us.
And then they also planted dogwood trees at each spot where each body was found. And they have plaques there in memory of Wes and Dwayne, and then another one in memory of Rod.
The plaques came from your
My-
son.
My son made them, and they took these plaques down. Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, through it all, I mean, God has been good. I can say God is good through it all, right? Is it hard? Yes. Is it difficult? Is it lonely? Sometimes pretty lonely. But when you stop and take time to see the sunsets and the sunrises, right? And to really realize how good God is. And I feel so blessed. People really reached out, as they did to all of us. They really reached out.
Very much.
Yeah.
I was given a lot of flower bouquets, and at one point I counted them in my kitchen. My kitchen was big in the farmhouse. I had about 20.
Yeah, I
And
felt
probably
very
used them
loved and
Very
supported.
much too.
I'd like to just share one story yet, that when I was I'm not sure exactly how many days it was after Rod's accident, I was sitting in our living room, and my boys were there, and my one son's wailing on the chair, I want dad, and my other son's sitting there, his eyes are squeezed tight shut, and the tears are just running down his face, and I'm thinking, we're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it. We are not gonna make it. And I text my siblings, and I just said, our hearts are breaking, please pray. And I felt a presence come in our back door. It was like a mist. You couldn't see it. It wasn't hot. It wasn't cold. But this presence came in, and my children picked up books, started reading. Within less than 5 minutes, it went from one chaotic wailing to this real peaceful. And I'm like, God, you are real. You are real. One time I came down, this is just actually in January, I came down the steps one Sunday morning, and Shelley, the lady from down there, she had given me chimes that have in memory of Rod on it, like wind chimes outside. And I came down the steps one morning, Sunday morning, and it went, I don't usually even pay attention to those chimes. And they went ding, ding, ding. And I was like, just a minute, that's the song Always Well, Always Well. It's like a Christmas song, Always Well. And I was like, oh, it was like really louder than usual. I listened. I was like, it did it again. And I was like, wow. And I wasn't even really upset about anything. I was just like, all is well. And it did it 3 times. And then it stopped. And then the wind picked up, and that was it. And I was just like, oh, yeah. 'Cause I don't even really listen to them. They're just always there. Just like this peaceful sound. So, did you want to share anything else about anything that stands out to you afterward or anything?
I don't know that I have, especially, I'd say what really stands out to me, the love and community of our family, our friends, our church family. You know, between the 3 families, there was a lot of love to go around. And I didn't feel like, you know, Rod was this big, well-known guy, and Dwayne was this little, you know, just quiet guy. No, I never felt that difference. I felt like we were loved equally.
I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. Yeah.
I didn't say, but Rod and Brenda is my husband's cousins. And yeah, Dwayne was one of Wesley's best friends.
Yeah. And I must say, you know, it's friendships. Your friendships really, really count. And don't ever leave the house mad at somebody, because, you know, it bothered me a little bit that I didn't get up and say goodbye to Dwayne that morning. But you know what? He was a fully grown, responsible man. But we prayed the night before, and I'm okay with that. But never leave the house, man. And hold your loved ones dear. We never know when it will be the last.
So I'd like to leave a verse with you that is a very common one. John 14:27 says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." I just heard an acronym last week, and it says for the word hope, it stands for hold on, pain ends. Hold on, pain ends. Might not be here on earth, but someday we are not going to have any pain. So.
And in closing, could I say, I don't know if you've seen the picture of Jesus and the little girl over there, but we all have pain in our life. We all have pain. We all are on a journey. And I know the first time I had seen that picture, my granddaughter was about 4 years old and resembled that somewhat. And I knew she was could be facing some difficult choices in her life. And that brought tears to my eyes. And you know, that's how Jesus wants to hold us. Jesus wants to hold us and take our troubles. Can I read this tapestry?
Absolutely.
Okay. The tapestry. My life is but a weaving between my Lord and me. I cannot choose the colors, he worketh steadily. Oft times he weaveth sorrow, and in foolish pride I forget he sees the upper and I the underside. Not till the loom is silent and the shuttles cease to fly shall God unroll the canvas and explain the reason why. The dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hands as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern he has planned. He knows, he loves, he cares, nothing the truth can dim. He gives the very best to those who leave the choice with him. You know, we just see the ugliness sometimes, but God's going to show the picture.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, stay up here. Thank you all very much. Wow. Does anybody have any questions, or could we pass? Yeah, sure.
Yep, that's fine.
I do. When did that happen?
August 11, 2022.
Oh, okay.
So it's 3 years ago.
I see.
3 years. It's not that long, right? No. Anyone else? Questions or comments or?
One thing I really appreciated for all you ladies is you told us about Rod and Dwayne and Wesley. I was widowed when I was 32, and I'm remarried. But at the time, I felt like people wouldn't let me talk about my husband, you know, and I wanted to, that's all I wanted to do. So I would just encourage any of you, if you know somebody that's going through this, just say, tell me about him, tell me about her. That means the world.
And I must say, like, for my husband, he does, delivers feed to a lot of Amish farmers. And you know, guys generally don't do heart-to-heart talks, but he has met so many men who are hurting, and he has been sharing his heart, sharing his experience with these Amish guys. And, you know, he looks forward to seeing some certain customers because they share, because there's been a lot of, you know, loss in the Amish families, and he can very well identify with that. And I just feel so blessed to see that.
Yeah, great.
I just want to say to all of you, I mean, especially Gina, who's very dear to me. You guys, I tell everyone Gina's my fake hero, and she is. I know it's hard, but I see you and the rest of you, like you just said, using this, your pain, allowing God to use your pain to walk alongside other people. So, thank you for that.
And I have little cards here that says, to get beauty for ashes, something must burn. And you know, there's, and so you can feel free to take any of these little, or if you want to pass them. And then, thank you.
When you were talking about the little things that you start to remember, it just occurred to me they're like little kisses from God. You know, I'm a visual person, and when you see God show up in little ways in your life, they're like little God kisses. I don't know why that came to my mind, but it did when you were sharing some of those things. But yeah, I mean, if you think about all the people that were impacted, you know, in a good way eventually, the rescuers and like your husband sharing, I mean, you know, that's the thing. God never wastes a hurt. Yeah, so I don't really have any words, you know, after hearing you guys. Anyone else?
So sorry for your loss. I'll agree with you.
Yeah. But they're very brave to come and share.
Amen.
Yeah. So God can turn anything that seems bad into good. That's one of my favorite verses was when Joseph said, you know, people meant it for bad, but God uses it for good. And that's a different perspective from what the world says. You know, the world says we should be mad, we should be upset, we should be, you know, bitter. But no, that's not how God wants us to live. So to hear them talk about the good things that are coming out of what was bad, you know, it's a whole different perspective. And that's what brings us joy, is looking at things from God's perspective, right? Because life here is short, really. When you think about it, it's short for all of us, whether, you know, an accident or, you know, whatever. We don't have a whole lot of time, so make it count, right?
None of us are here to stay.
That's right. This isn't our home, thankfully. Anybody else? Any encouragement for the ladies, or did we have any comments online going for anybody? No? Okay. All right. Well, I think, thanks to Janelle, there's plenty of snacks, so you can go over and fellowship, enjoy, meet the ladies. So thanks for coming. We'll be back next Wednesday. And